Hold on to your seats because what we're about to dive into is pure chaos. Reality TV at its absolute peak, and trust me, you do not want to blink for a second. Have you ever watched a situation unfold and thought, wait, is this scripted, or are these people actually losing their minds on national television? Yeah, this is one of those moments. Imagine Tisha and Nell, normally the calm voices of reason, stepping up, confronting Kimmi, and suddenly the energy goes from zero to nuclear. Gaslighting. Check. Yelling. Oh, absolutely. Threats? You bet. And Melody? Yes, Melody, the one who warned us all along, was right all along. Did we listen? Nope. Did we ignore her like the rest of the cast? Of course. But now the truth is hitting harder than a full-size punch to the jaw, and nobody is walking away unscathed. So buckle up, grab your popcorn, and get ready. Because we are peeling back the layers of drama, hypocrisy, and jaw-dropping chaos. By the end of this video, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about these ladies. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see Melody in a whole new light. All right? Let's dive straight into the heart of the storm, because what unfolded between Tisha Scott, Nell Fletcher, and Kimmi Scott was nothing short of reality television chaos at its most intense and unforgettable level. These women were never just casually interacting. This was a collision of personalities so explosive, it felt like someone had thrown gasoline onto a simmering fire. Kimmi, who has built a reputation for twisting conversations and creating unnecessary tension, was at the center of it all. And this time she met two people who were not willing to let anything slide. Tisha and Nell, normally measured and calm, had been quietly observing Kimmi's behavior for weeks, cataloging every passive-aggressive remark, every pointed look, every subtle manipulation that had flown under the radar during past gatherings. When they finally decided it was time to confront her, it wasn't just about a single comment or misunderstanding. It was a calculated move to call out a pattern of behavior that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. The setting was deceptively casual, a gathering meant for laughs and light conversation. But anyone who has ever watched reality TV knows that nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Hidden under polite smiles and casual small talk were layers of tension thicker than the frosting on a wedding cake. And as soon as the conversation shifted, the room's energy changed in an instant. What started as a simple question quickly escalated because Kimmi responded with ambiguity, sarcasm, and a subtle mix of defensiveness and provocation that set off alarm bells for both Tisha and Nell. Nell, who had prepared herself mentally for this confrontation, immediately challenged Kimmi, calling out repeated behaviors that had caused tension within the group and citing specific moments that viewers might have missed. Tisha, equally precise, added context and emphasized the importance of clarity, insisting that manipulation and twisting of words would no longer go unchecked. And of course, Kimmi, true to form, attempted to redirect the blame, deflecting accusations, denying behaviors, and framing herself as the misunderstood party. But this time, her tactics were met with unwavering resistance. The conversation quickly escalated into a psychological battle with facts, observations, and firm confrontation meeting manipulation, gaslighting, and subtle attempts to make the others feel overly sensitive. Public reaction online was immediate and intense, with fans and anonymous insiders chiming in with fake leaks and exaggerated reports that made the confrontation feel even larger than life. Rumors circulated about lavish spending, contradictory behaviors, and attention-seeking tactics. And fans reacted with shock, disbelief, and memes, highlighting the absurdity of Kimmi's defensive performance. The dynamic in the room was electric, Nell standing firm with precise arguments and unwavering resolve, Tisha maintaining calm but authoritative pressure, and Kimmi fluctuating between defensive posturing and attempts at sympathy by bringing up past hardships, hoping to derail the confrontation. And just when it seemed like things could not get any more tense, references to Melody emerged, the cast member who had previously warned everyone about these exact behaviors. And suddenly the confrontation was not just about the present conflict, but about proving that Melody's observations had been correct all along. This addition added a meta layer of drama that made the scene feel like a culmination of multiple seasons of subtle tensions and ignored warnings, intensifying the emotional weight of the argument. By the peak of the confrontation, it was clear that this was no longer about a single incident, but about patterns, accountability, and the frustration of watching manipulation and gaslighting go unchecked. According to sources close to the cast, there was a moment where even Kimmi's confident facade faltered. Her voice wavered, and the realization set in that Tisha and Nell were not backing down. That this was a challenge to behavior that had persisted for too long, and that she might actually have to face consequences she had avoided in previous interactions. The tension in the room was palpable, a mix of anger, frustration, and the kind of psychological intensity that makes viewers lean forward in their seats, clutching popcorn as they try to absorb every word, gesture, and expression, knowing that what they are witnessing is a rare moment of truth and confrontation in a show known for its twists, turns, and ongoing drama, and that the implications of this confrontation would not end in that moment, but would ripple through future interactions, affect alliances, and shift perceptions across the entire cast as viewers tried to process exactly what had just unfolded. The aftermath of the confrontation between Tisha, Nell, and Kimmi did not calm down like anyone expected. In fact, it spiraled into a psychological chess match where every word, glance, and pause carried weight and consequence, and the energy in the room shifted from tense to electric as viewers could feel the subtle but undeniable shifts in alliances and power dynamics in Kimmi, realizing that her usual tactics of deflection and dramatic storytelling were no longer working, tried to regain control by shifting the focus onto minor grievances that had nothing to do with the core argument, a move that only fueled the frustration of both Tisha and Nell, who had come prepared not to let manipulations slide. And as the conversation continued, what had started as a verbal confrontation began to expose layers of hypocrisy, past secrets, and long-held resentments that had never been aired publicly, but now seemed impossible to contain as each participant in the discussion brought their own history and perspective to the table, creating an intricate web of claims and counterclaims, subtle digs, and pointed observations that had fans on social media dissecting every syllable and imagining the private conversations that had led up to this explosive moment. And of course, the tension was only heightened by the presence of other cast members who hovered in the background, watching, judging, and occasionally attempting to intervene with varying degrees of success, with some trying to act as peacemakers, while others secretly fueled the fire by making knowing comments or side-eye gestures that were captured by the cameras and later discussed endlessly by viewers who loved nothing more than a layered, multi-sided drama where alliances could shift in an instant and anyone could emerge as the hero or the villain, depending on whose story you believed and how you interpreted body language and tone. And as the argument reached its peak, the conversation inevitably touched on past grievances involving marriages, relationships, and personal struggles, which added emotional weight and complexity because now what was being discussed was not just about present behavior, but about credibility, transparency, and who had been honest and authentic versus who had been hiding or embellishing. And the level of detail being disclosed, even in veiled references, created suspense and intrigue as fans speculated on exactly what had been left unsaid over the years, and how this confrontation might finally expose truths that had been simmering under the surface for seasons. And while the women exchanged these pointed observations and defended their positions, the men on the sidelines also became part of the drama, offering commentary that was sometimes intended to calm things down, but often carried its own flavor of judgment, sarcasm, or passive aggression, all of which added layers to an already tense environment, and made this scene feel like a fully orchestrated psychological thriller where no one was completely innocent and everyone had a part to play in escalating or diffusing the situation. And even when moments of calm seemed to arrive, they were temporary because the conversation was emotionally charged, unpredictable, and packed with underlying motivations. And viewers could not help but notice how history was repeating itself in subtle ways, How patterns that Melody had once identified years ago were re-emerging. How behavior that had been tolerated or ignored was now being challenged directly and visibly. And how the combination of raw emotion, past grievances, and strategic confrontation created a compelling spectacle that left everyone questioning alliances, motives, and what honesty really meant in this context. And the way Tisha and Nell handled themselves, standing firm, articulating grievances clearly, and refusing to let the narrative be twisted against them, contrasted sharply with Kimmi's attempts to manipulate and control perception, which only made the confrontation more dramatic and suspenseful, because it was not just a verbal exchange but a battle of strategy, perception, and psychological endurance. And the implications of this moment extended beyond a single scene, because now relationships, trust, and reputations were being tested in front of the cameras, in front of a live audience, and in the eyes of viewers who had been watching for seasons and who understood the stakes and history behind every comment, every raised eyebrow, and every moment of silence. And as the dust settled, the room was left with tension that was thick enough to cut with a knife. Alliances had shifted, and the audience was left with a lingering question about who would emerge stronger, who would lose credibility, and who would ultimately have to reckon with the consequences of being called out publicly in such a dramatic, inescapable, and highly charged confrontation. So now that you've seen everything unfold, the real question becomes, what do you think is going to happen next? Who is really telling the truth and who is just playing the game to protect their own reputation? Because this confrontation is far from over. And the ripples of this explosion are going to affect relationships, alliances, and the way every single cast member is perceived going forward. And you need to ask yourself, if you were in Nell or Tisha's shoes, would you have the courage to call someone out the way they did? Or would you have stayed silent, letting manipulation and gaslighting continue unchecked? And can Kimmi actually recover from this public scrutiny? Or has she crossed a line that even her most loyal fans won't forgive? Because the footage, the reactions, and the history are all out there for everyone to see and judge. And now it's up to you, the viewer, to weigh in, to comment, to share your thoughts. Because this is the moment where opinions matter, where speculation runs wild, and where your voice joins the conversation. And if you want more deep dives into the drama, the controversies, and the explosive confrontations that everyone else is too afraid to dissect, then make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because trust me, you do not want to miss a single revelation, a single twist, or a single shocking moment that is coming next in this saga. Because this story is only going to get bigger, wilder, and even more unbelievable.